And welcome everyone to our April Arts Dinner, celebrating arts outside.
Thank you, Councillor O'Shea, and welcome guests to this beautiful gallery here at the Goondiwindi Civic Centre. I've got to make sure I say that right. Our Arts Dinner's live and online, South West Queensland, and also welcome to our online viewers wherever you may be. Thank you, Arts Queensland and the Regional Arts Service Network for making this possible. We're live streaming this panel discussion tonight and encourage those who are joining us on the live stream to post any questions in the chat room, and we will ask the panel as we go through. Please let us know where you are from. That really helps. Also to let you know that this conversation will be posted on the Arts Dinner's Facebook page and the artsdinner.com site after the show, and we encourage you to share it widely because these conversations have been really wonderful and we want to spread the word as fast as we can. So tonight we come together to talk about celebrating art outside. Our panel tonight, Liz Rivers, who is the Awards Director for the Australian Street Art Awards and a passionate advocate for street art. Sarah Sculley, Lanescapes 2019 participating artist. They'll be joining us via live stream. Lesley Hawker, Goondiwindi artist, dedicated committee member of Lanescapes and a secondary school art teacher, and Councillor Phil O'Shea, portfolio chair for the arts at Goondiwindi Regional Council. Welcome everyone, and thank you for your time tonight. I'm going to start off with a question for each of the panel. We'll start off with Phil. Why do you think it's important to celebrate art outside the domain of the gallery?
Well, I just want to say I get really nervous, especially when I don't know what I'm talking about. But I do want to say, when I thought about that and I thought about outside art, I thought as a musician playing in our local rock band 2 weeks ago at the Goondiwindi picnic races, performing on stage on the track, I thought, well, that's outside art to a certain extent, entertaining 1,500 people in the mosh pit and having a good old time and enjoying a great picnic races here at Goondiwindi. So I just thought that is a good thing. And I looked it up about art, and it talks about expression, imagination, creativity and emotion. And I thought with my songwriting, that really plays a big part. Those 4 words, creativity, expression, imagination and emotion. And I thought that outside art, away from the gallery art, is obviously it's open to more people to view and to see, and how great that is for tourism and economic development in our area. But really, when you break it all down, it's attractive. It captures the eye and it distracts from the normal functional operations of the streetscape that we normally see. It grabs your attention and it takes you away to a different place. I'll talk more about local art and sculptures later on from one of our local artists, but it really is, it really tells people about who we are, tells visitors and tourists about where we're from and possibly where we're going to.
It gives people that insight and that hook into a place.
I think so. I think we have that here in Goondiwindi, a very vibrant, active community, especially in the arts. And, outside art is doing that for our region, absolutely.
That's great. Lesley, what about you? Why do you think it's important to be outside the domain of the gallery?
Well, I think I was just thinking as Phil was doing the Welcome to Country about what I would answer to this question. And I was thinking that the very first original forms of art by the original owners of the land were outside. They were on the earth, they were on cave walls, they were on rocks, and they celebrated the environment, albeit the natural environment. But since the environment has grown to urban spaces or more man-made spaces, I think the reason for creating the art is the same. It's to tell stories, it's to communicate with each other, it's to beautify places and spaces, which is part of our Lanescape mission statement that I'll talk about a little bit later if you ask me that question. But I don't think art should be limited by media or place or constrained by any sort of dictates or prescriptions. I think outside is just another canvas that artists have great opportunity to work with and on, and in communities like Goondiwindi, as Phil said, it's a very vibrant art community. And so the reasons and the functions behind doing art are important, but it's also about those things of self-expression, identity, our identity as a town, as a place, as a regional centre. The stories that we can tell by bringing art to our places and spaces connects us as a community, but it also connects us to people coming into our community.
Mm. So I'm going to ask the same question of Sarah, who's of course a mural artist who's participated in Lanescapes. Sarah, what do you think? Why do you think it's important?
I think that Lesley and Phil are right on the mark. So thanks for answering the question, guys. I've got nothing to say. No, I'm kidding. So, I also think that public art is a way for the community to feel ownership over their space as well, especially if they like it. And it's also placemaking. So a lot of the time it solves a problem. So it's not just art for art's sake, but it's there to make a place or to transform a space or to bring some energy or life, or as Lesley said, tell a story. And it's also a new audience, people that might not generally walk into a gallery and see work. It's a different audience that you're reaching.
Yeah. That's a good point. What about you, Liz? What do you think? As the director of Australian Street Art Awards, why do you think it's important for arts to be outside the gallery space?
I think Sarah's got it pretty much spot on in a number of instances. I mean, it certainly is placemaking, there's no doubt about that. But I think that it's really important that it's outside, particularly because it's, for a start, particularly at the moment, it's COVID safe. It's free, therefore it's accessible to everybody. But carrying on a little bit more from what Sarah said, there's also an awful lot of people who feel anxious about walking into an art gallery space. Do they supposed to know about the art already? There's a whole range of other anxieties that come in, and therefore you attract an audience to outdoor art that you don't necessarily attract to gallery art. And that really covers a lot more age groups as well, particularly younger people, so you can engage them much earlier in the process.
It's that the galleries can be that sort of last bastion or that a barrier for people, can't they? So being able to see artwork outside in the street has that sense of ownership.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, that's right. Phil, what has the Arts Outside projects like Lanescapes done for Goondiwindi?
Well, Lanescape, the organisation, I think, I truly believe has and is filling a void that's been missing in this region for many years. It's successfully managed to create discussion, involve the community, linking council, artists, and involving everyone with the events and the projects that they're putting on. It's the sculptures that are being put outside and presented and endorsed by their committee is quite amazing. We have one of the artists here tonight. It's down near our boat ramp precinct, the Pelican, the Codfish, out near the airport at the Once Upon a Time structure, which I think high school students were involved with that, with the Once Upon a Time doing of the actual letters, I think through Sarah and Lesley, if I recall. And the coat of arms, the large emu and the large kangaroo. I mean, I think really the stats to see how many people would pull up there and take a photo and take that in as an experience in Goondiwindi is quite amazing.
Can you measure those stats?
Well, we haven't yet, I don't think, but I think we should. I reckon every 30 minutes, there's someone pulling up there,
wow, taking
a photo in little old Goondiwindi of that artwork, outside art, which is incredible for our region. And not only that, I was thinking there before that people are proud, our locals are proud to show visitors, and family and tourists the artwork that we have around here. And I really believe that an organisation like Lanescape, with volunteers for our community, has done an incredible job, and they're doing an incredible job and really highlighting Goondiwindi to the world.
I like that. That's very ambitious, but it's very true. It's a beautiful piece of work as you come in. That it's really quite something in a very positive way. As a new councillor for the region and chair of the arts portfolio for the council, what is the future for art outside here in Goondiwindi? Well, as I'm indicating, you know, outside art here in Goondiwindi is extremely healthy. We're becoming more of a magnet. Yeah. To Queensland and Australia and travellers around the world. COVID has had a big hit on us, which has made it a little bit difficult for the international travellers that are coming to Goondiwindi to see our art. You know, but they're coming, and they will come if you build it, Ray. They will come. The old story. It's happening. But I really believe that I'm very proud to be the arts portfolio here in Goondiwindi with our region. We've got so much to offer throughout our region with Texas and Inglewood and Yalarbin. Not preaching to the converted here, but the Yalarbin Silos took out the big award and got third in the Mural Art Award. And for those who don't know, it's 24 metres high, 8 silos, 94 metres across, 1,800 square metre canvas and 10,000 litres of paint. Whoa. And $250,000 project, which is pretty incredible for our little area here in our region. So did the community put, how did you fund that? Was it external funding or council put money in? Or? There was a variety of funding. There was a lot of consultation between community, council and business, and I will talk about that more. It's probably one of the most successful art projects in Queensland's history. Do you think that's because you unified people through that consultation to come up with the design? Previous council were very involved with it. It wasn't easy. There were ups and downs, and the process had its challenges. We'll say it like that. But I truly believe that the people who talked about that for many years, surveys, discussions around kitchen tables, around the pub, what we could do with it. Pass the pub test. And then that collaboration, finally, of the town folk, the rural folk, the council, the consultation, business, Queensland Rail, GrainCorp, we talk about that in a minute, was quite amazing, Because that really leads to that sense of ownership and identity that I think Lesley was talking about before. So because this is going live stream and we're hoping to help other people reach some of the goals that you've already reached, how can organisers developing creative projects like this in the public realm work best with councils? Because obviously some councils, you know, need to be taken on the journey, and businesses the same. What's in it for them and the community? Is it their voice? Like what advice would you give them? I think, as I've said earlier, collaboration is the key. You know, council, we can only enable and facilitate. We generally don't come up with the ideas. It's the artists, it's the people, it's the community that comes up with the ideas, and we're there to support and make that happen. Business is very much involved with it. Just little businesses in that small community of Yalarbin were very involved and financially support and just their time. How do you put a price on time? You can't. And I truly believe that, as I said earlier, we're such an active community with that. And if you can't get everyone together, it ain't going to happen. So it has to be led by initiative, creativity, imagination, and those ideas that really get the other people involved. It's like, it is a journey, it's a pathway, and the Yalarbin Silo project is an absolute success. And for those that might not have seen that, you can Google Yalarbin Silos project. It's a beautiful project, and it really has got that air of whimsical. It's youthful, it's got of place, it's a really lovely thing. And I think those projects which combine people together is a wonderful thing. Exactly. As I said earlier, you're never going to get it all right, but you know, and satisfy everyone's point of view. But in the end, it's an absolute masterpiece for our region. It's fantastic. Congratulations, it is. Lesley, you're a volunteer for Lanescapes. Tell us how you got started in that, and what was your role in that event?
Well, I wouldn't probably speak about myself as an individual because it's such a collective experience. Landscape is a group of people who are all passionate about the cause. So at the beginning, I would probably call on the word humble. It had very humble beginnings. Our current president, Angus, who's sitting in the audience tonight, was definitely the driving force, and his wife, Sandy, when they spread the word of mouth, which is often how it happens in small country towns, which is really refreshing. It didn't happen through an answering service. So there was a few phone calls went back and forth and a few conversations on the footpath outside the coffee shop that said, look, we're really keen to get together as a group and see how we can beautify our town and bring some artwork to Goondiwindi. And at this point, I would like to mention a wonderful patron of the arts, Angus's mother, Jennifer Wilson, who worked tirelessly her whole life to be an advocate for the arts in terms of trying to get gallery spaces and promote workshops and all sorts of things like that. So Angus is kind of carrying that baton now, I believe, and has brought us together in the most humble of ways. We got together with council members, just local business people, art workers, anyone and everyone who was interested. No one was excluded. It wasn't a club, or it wasn't you had to have a credential to be involved. And that's a good thing about Angus as being our leader. He's very inclusive. So everyone was welcome, everyone's opinions were welcome. But we soon found when we met at our first humble meeting that there were a lot of opinions and that we were all talking at once. And in the early stages, we had big dreams, but we really didn't know a lot about the logistics of bringing things to life. So that took us a little while, probably the first year and a half. We did have some people who, brought some structure to our meetings, and we would meet like the Secret Seven or the Famous Five in the little shed next door here to dream big. And so some of our early projects were really just round the table. We'd like to do this. So it always started with what we'd like to do, and then we'd have to backward map and think, where are we going to find the funding? What other considerations have we got to make? What are the logistics? Okay, we might need some insurance. Yes, there's some workplace health and safety considerations we might have to make. All of the logistic things that go into planning, conceiving, planning, prepping, and realising a piece of public art. And it is a journey, as Phil said earlier. So the humble beginnings were anyone that was interested. We did a walk around the town, and we were, again, all talking over each other, remember, Angus? I'd like to paint the water towers. Oh, what about the Telstra building? Oh, let's go down Bowen Lane.
But that's enthusiasm, isn't it?
It's very enthusiastic, and I think that's our biggest asset.
Yeah,
is that we are volunteers, but it's not work because we are all of the same.
You're
cause. Getting
something out of it.
Yeah, we get a lot. We do get a lot out of it, and so that's where it all began. I've forgotten what your question was.
Well, how did you then approach the theme of this?
Oh, the theme. Okay, the initial kind of ideas came through collaborating a little bit, and first up, with the local high school where I've worked for a number of years, and we've run a cultural festival week there for 20 odd years now. It's called Expressive Arts Week. And so because I was involved with that, there became a symbiotic relationship between my investment in landscape and public arts projects and how I could involve the youth, because that's kind of my focus.
Makes sense.
And so we set up a little bit of a marriage there, and we always have a theme or a concept for Expressive Arts Week, and the council have always supported us to bring that festival to life by providing us with some funding and various other things. And so the theme, the concept for Expressive Arts Week that year, our very first year, was Under One Sky. And so we thought that kind of matched how we felt about a group, how we felt about our town, what we wanted to say, what sort of story we could tell. And then we went forth and we looked for artists and to match the concept. So it always kind of was driven by a concept, an idea, or a story. And then we would set forth on putting out EOIs or seeking artists. In the initial stages, we kind of went to who we knew, and then we realised that we could broaden that pool of artists by developing EOIs, which was another logistic thing that we learned along the way as a committee.
So I guess that's where I was going next. So, I mean, I love that under one sky. It's so universal. It's about how do we build community? How do we build identity? So the theme is really strong. But then I guess how do you promote it to the community so they come on board the journey as well? So the EOI gets it out to the arts community, but how did you promote it to the community who weren't directly involved?
Okay. Well, I can use my teacher voice now because a key word in education is alignment. So all the stars had to align. So we had the dream. Yeah. We had to align by finding the funding and making the logistics, bring the dream to realisation. But we also had to be mindful that this is a community and that there were various stakeholders. And I would say that one of Lanescape's strengths is their willingness to communicate with their community. Many of our members who are in the audience here tonight wrote letters, walked the street, designed posters. We had sponsors evenings. We had information evenings. We promoted the possible probable artist lists that we had at those sponsors evenings in terms of, well, we're thinking about doing this. What do you think?
So you took on board their feedback, the community's feedback?
I would have to say, echoing Phil's words earlier, that he hates talking about what he doesn't know, which is clearly he knows a lot. But I would have to say that people were very willing to be not guided or led, that's probably the wrong word, but they were very receptive to someone who wanted to take the initiative.
Okay.
We didn't find a lot of barriers. Oh, you're not going to paint that pink, or you're not going to put that sculpture there. We didn't really experience that so much. It was more, we were mindful that we were an emerging committee, that we didn't, Angus especially, I would say, that we needed to build our confidence. That we were, this is a public artwork, so the community are stakeholders, and we were very mindful of that. So maybe that was just implied in the way that we communicated, and I think they certainly appreciated the fact that if we wanted their opinion, the street walking, the letters, this is what we're thinking of doing in the local newspaper, press releases, things like that.
So it's more that you were informing them about what you were doing. They had an opportunity.
It wasn't just going out and doing it, which is very much how council operates in this town as well.
Yeah,
not feasibility studies. What's it called? Community consultation. Yeah.
So that's fantastic. Doesn't sound like you had too many barriers. What was the atmosphere like during the event?
Oh, just back on the barriers, I would just like to mention that I think there was some integrity in our intrepidation and need to build confidence as a committee. Yep. It was never, we're going to do this.
So you were a bit vulnerable, which helps people to
I
come
think
along
that
the journey.
that was implied, and I think that built integrity in the Lanescape group as well. And I think that's credit to the Lanescape
have sort
group.
of that, we send a bit of a different vibe out there.
Sorry, what was the next question?
What was the atmosphere like during the event?
Well, there was one word that I did use, but I can't use it here. Well, I might change it to electric. We never anticipated holding a huge festival. Yep. Our focus initially was always we wanted to create a public artwork. Then as we were evolving, because we were evolving and we were often making decisions on the run. So we had this dream and we'd set about the logistics of trying to bring the dream to life. And as we were going through that process, we thought, oh, well, we've done a painting, we'd better exhibit it. And we're exhibiting outside, so that means that people should come to see it. So how should we make that happen? Oh, well, perhaps we should have a small event, which ended up being 2,000 people the first time, I think. And we were thinking we might get 200. And so,
how many people are in Goondiwindi? 5,000, so almost half the population.
I would like to echo again. Sorry, Angus, I keep referring to Angus sitting in the audience because he really is our mentor. But I remember Angus coming and saying, "This is the best night of my life," because there were so many. The vibe was amazing. It was amazing. There were family, there were people, there were business, there were visitors, there were people who just wanted to, perhaps document the event to say that they were there. The artists were there, the youth were there, the schools were there, their parents were there. It was a very community event. So, and then when we had such success, unanticipated success, well, then that put us under pressure the next year to think, well, we've done this, now we have to keep doing this. And so it did create a bit of a challenge in thinking, how do we grow this? But we don't want to grow it beyond necessarily the public artwork itself. It's like the two have become the one animal in some respect, because as far as I'm concerned, if you're making public art, you're not making it to put in the wardrobe, you're making it to celebrate it. So the celebration and the artwork have become very symbiotic. So how we make it better is not necessarily what we're trying to do, but we certainly are now mindful that it's a very powerful event.
That's Lanescapes for those who are watching online. You can Google that too, I would assume, and find that.
Well, people were asking
images
at the end of the night when the next one is, and they thought they were going to be monthly. And it took us a year to plan that one. So
hopefully, and because COVID would have sort of put the kibosh on that.
Last year, we couldn't do it.
So you're doing one?
We're hoping to do it this year, fingers crossed, and we are just entering into that phase for 2021.
That's great. So we might go to Sarah. Sarah, you're based in the Sunshine Coast, but have worked in many places across Queensland. What do events like Lanescapes offer mural artists?
Pretty much the same thing that everyone's been talking about. It's a community, and as an artist, working in a space by myself, and I'm sure a lot of artists are the same, it gives us an opportunity to come out into a community and get involved with the community and move into a space and network with other artists as well, which we don't often get to do. And I think it gives us an opportunity to create an artwork for a community rather than sitting in our space, creating for us, selling the artwork online. It also gives us an opportunity to network. So a lot of independent artists move from job to job, and a lot of the times we'll go and do one mural in the community, and from that job we'll pick up one or two more murals, and then from that we'll pick up one or two more murals. So it gives us an opportunity to further our career as well. And who doesn't love getting out on a wall and painting? That's what we love doing. So that gives us an opportunity to do that as well. And obviously creative expression, any excuse to get out and paint and beautify and place make and bring a community together and get community involvement. And I love running workshops. Lesley knows I love the workshops. So any way that we can get the community involved, and I love the festival side of it as well. So I guess one of the reasons why I love these events is celebration. Yeah.
It's great, isn't it? Because not only is the town getting something, they're actually contributing to the greater good of mural artists and this sort of outdoor arts across Australia, because by having an event like this, you're building the capacity of that sector. So that's fantastic. When you're approached by a group like this to do a mural project, what is your ideal brief? Because if we're putting this out to Queensland and the rest of Australia, and you as an artist, what is the best thing that or the things that you need to know in order for you to consider taking on a job?
I think particularly for a festival like this, a theme is always good. So having a theme and a direction to go. I quite like themes that comment on social issues, but obviously a lot of this is funded by council and government, and those social issues can't always be pushed. So a theme always offers a kind of brief. As an artist, I like a little bit of direction, but not too much. And I think a lot of other artists are the same. I also really love when there's time to create. So if we're approached 6 months out from the event, we can start planning, we can apply for grants if we need to, organise travel, and then we can be in that community for a week beforehand or 2 weeks beforehand, and we can, talk to people in the community, spend time with groups, run workshops, so that we can come up with a concept and a design that really fits that community. I really love having that time and space to do that, but that's all money as well. So that's the hard part of it.
That's faith though, isn't it? Also that, you could be, who knows what they may not have confidence or may not be aware of your art form. So to have a group that's confident about what you're doing and gives you the scope to be creative, is that part of it as well? Is that, because I guess if you're too constrained, it's stultifying.
Definitely. It's always great when the group is aware of what you do and previous works that you've done, because, a lot of the time I get approached by individuals who, can you come and paint a mural? I know you're a mural artist. Can you do a life-size version of a humpback whale? And that is so far from my style that it's not even funny. And I just kind of have to say, I'm sorry that I can't, but I know someone that can. So when the group comes to you and they're like, we know this is your style. We love what you do already. We believe that you can do something great for us too. This is our theme. And as an artist, I just go, yes, that's the dream brief.
That's great. And so I guess that comes down to the committee or the organisers doing a bit of research on the styles, so being a bit familiar with what to expect, and also probably working with their council to know where the boundaries are of what you can say. Because I guess if it was looking at a mural project that was about anti-crime, you know, that might be specific about that or a particular community group. So as a mural artist, what is your process? What helps to make it, like, what do you do? How do you go about it?
The first thing is timing. So I like to work within a production timeline. So when is the event or when is the project needed to be done by? So because some people come to me and they're like, we need a mural in a week. And that's not going to happen. So a production timeline is always first. And then I like to take a brief. So whether that's a theme, if possible, I like to see the wall. So do a site inspection. Because sometimes people guesstimate the size of the wall and they say, oh, I think it's about 3 meters. And then I go and see it and it's 7 meters tall and I need to get a scissor lift and there's no access. So site inspections, I like to figure out if there's a problem that needs to be solved, because it's one thing to come out and paint a wall and make it look pretty. And there's another thing to go out and solve a problem. So, you know, this alleyway is dark and dingy and people are scared to walk down it. What can you do? Or, you know, no one comes to my shop. It's around the corner. No one can ever find it. What can I do to help that? So it's not just a make it pretty. It's a problem being solved. And that, I love briefs like that where I can add value to a space. So generally I come up with, once I've had the meeting and figured out the problem to be solved, then I come up with concepts and send them through. And then normally they bounce back with, we like this direction, and we refine that. And then I purchase paint. And that's the fun part.
And how long might it take, as organisers, you know, they're listening to this and thinking, okay, so she said it, you know, she needs more than a week, but how long might it take you to paint, you know, a decent sized wall? Is it a month, 2 months, 6 months?
For a decent sized wall on site, I'd probably be there for a week to paint it. If the event is doing EOIs, depends on what the EOI is as well. So some EOIs ask for a concept when you're submitting. Some EOIs ask for your details and what you can do, which are the EOIs that I like, because I always leave it to the last second. And then I read down, I'm like, I can fill that in. And then I'm like, oh, they want a concept. Uh-oh. So I like the ones without concepts. And so once they say, okay, we like what you do, can you quote on the wall, give them the quote and it fits within the budget, then ideally it would be great if it was, you know, 6 weeks. So there's enough thinking time around that to come up with some concepts, do the site inspection, have chats, talk to the community. That would be great. And then probably a week or two to make changes. And it always seems to take me a week to get paint, primarily because of COVID. So there's a lot of trouble getting spray paint in. A lot of the shipments have been delayed. And one of the things, you know, when we went out to Goondiwindi for Lanescape a couple of years ago, I just assumed there would be a Bunnings. I just assumed. And so you've got to allow the understanding that there is not a Bunnings everywhere and that there are other ways to get paint. So ideally 6 weeks, but a project, if it needs to be fit in quickly, could probably be about 3 weeks.
That's interesting. That's interesting, because I guess, you know, one of the things I guess organisers who are thinking about this might be that that they organise the artists to come and do, you know, maybe there's a group of artists like in Lanescape doing a bit of a site visit so you get to know the town. Yeah,
that would be fantastic.
Yeah. And hopefully people are listening to this who are planning things in other places. That would be great. We might just come back to that in a little while, but first of all, we'll go to Liz. How are you, Liz?
I'm well, thank you.
That's good.
Can you hear me? Yes. Good.
Yes, we can. Liz, you manage and market the Australian Street Art Awards for Public Art, which must take you to some pretty interesting places around Australia. What are you looking for?
Yeah, I think I have the best job in the world. I seriously do. In terms of what we're looking for, I guess that comes down in some instances to the motivations of who we know is actually keen on the public art. Because we look at it from a tourism perspective, we know our followers. We've done a lot of research, and we know our followers have very specific motivations. They fall very broadly into two groups. There's a first group who really love to brag. They're the guys who are looking for artworks that they can stand in front of, they can take a selfie, and they can post it, and everybody on their social networks is going to go, wow, you're in Goondiwindi standing in front of Angus Wilson's amazing cars. And they're just going to go, that's amazing. And the other guys, the second group, they're the ones who are going to be saying, okay, I'm looking for something to lift my own life. I want pretty. I want to be inspired by the artwork. I want something that's going to make me feel good about life. And so understanding those two different motivations gives you a lot of what you're looking for. But that's only part of it. The other part of it is, of course, because we're looking at it from a tourism awards perspective, a public art for tourism perspective, we also have to look at the functionality and the logistics of it. Things like, can you easily access the site? Is there parking close by? Are you able to take a photograph safely on site without being run over by a semi-trailer? All those sorts of things also are incredibly important when we look at artwork.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because I noticed when I looked at the Yalarbin, that's right, silos, there was a pullover area so that you could view the site from that particular site. And I thought, well, that's really interesting, because that helps people to actually, and what about things like hashtags? Because obviously if people are posting things on Facebook or Instagram, and do you do research around the hashtags of sculptures and things like that as part of the awards? How do you know?
We do. Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. And in some instances, there's been some destinations that have actually specifically created hashtags just for their artwork. The Kimber Silos in South Australia is a good example of that. And they really went out and pushed it very, very heavily. And that hashtag now has actually ended up almost expanding to include the whole of the town. So it started as Ignite Kimber, the hashtag Ignite Kimber. And it started within the community as part of getting the community excited and interested, I understand, and then it grew from there. And now you see on all manner of different social media posts that have nothing to do with public art, you see people posting Ignite Kimber, who have been there, who have visited, who want to let others know, and so forth. So it's a fascinating process.
Yeah, it is. Why has public art become such a draw card for tourism? I mean, what do we do before public art, and why is it now capturing people's imagination?
I think it actually always, or it has for a very long time, captured people's imagination. I mean, you think back to the big things of the 1970s, the craze of everybody running around Australia and taking photographs of the big prawn and the big banana and the big pineapple or whatever it happened to be. So I think we've always liked public art. It's just, I think now everybody's becoming much better. The towns and destinations are becoming much better at promoting that they've got the artwork there, and we're a much more mobile society. So we head out and we have a look at what's around. And I can't remember the other part of the question you asked me, sorry.
Well, I guess asking why was it such an important draw card for tourism, because I'm just wondering, are people actually going, I'm going to travel to these places because of their public art, do you think?
Absolutely. In some instances, there's no doubt whatsoever about that. And I guess the Silo Art Trail is probably one of the the best examples of that. I mean, there are people who are saying, okay, I live in Queensland, I'm on the Gold Coast, but I'm going to travel to Western Victoria specifically to do the Silo Art Trail in Western Victoria, or wherever it may happen to be. So there's absolutely no doubt about that. It's becoming incredibly important in that sort of aspect. The economic impact, of course, of it, when it's done well, and when it's promoted well, and when it's set up in a way that people can access it and photograph safely and easily and so forth, then it becomes a tremendous draw card for the area.
I guess that leads me to my next question, which is what makes it work and what makes it not work?
Yeah, okay. Okay, I think that once again, the motivation behind things is incredibly important. The motivation behind the people who are looking at the artwork. What really probably works best is when you're able to surprise people. They love being able to see something unexpected. Now, that could be unexpected in its location. It could be unexpected in the colour palette or the subject matter. So there's a number of different ways that you can make something extremely unusual and surprising, but that's probably the main thing that you're looking for, is to be able to maintain that surprise element. That doesn't exclude things such as making sure that it tells a good story and that it's authentic in the story it tells and so forth. But that surprise element is very, very key, really integral.
So how does that work then? If I've come across a piece of public artwork and it surprised me, am I going to come back again because I've been surprised once? Am I going to come back again to see it, or is that the motivation? Do they?
Okay, let me give you an example. Yes, it is, and it's not just about the whether you've just been surprised either. It comes down to how memorable the artwork is as well. Let me give you an example. I hope we don't have anybody from Mungindi, for instance, in the who's listening to this and who goes, oh, but for instance, Mungindi, you'd have a lot of people who could go through Mungindi and go, okay, I'm not going to remember this place. It's a gorgeous little town, but it's possibly just like a number of other little towns through regional New South Wales and Queensland. Go up the road a short way and you hit Fallon. If you ask anybody on the road, and we survey people on the road, travellers, they're going to remember Fallon if they've been there. It is memorable. So one of the great things about public art, and particularly murals, is that they're a comparatively inexpensive way of being able to create a landmark for your town or your region. And once they've created a landmark and it becomes memorable, then the research shows that people are more likely to return to a place where they've had an enjoyable experience and they remember it. And so they go, oh, yeah, we love Fallon, or, oh, wasn't that little gorgeous recreation ground opposite the Yalarbin silos with the lagoon just down the road? Oh, what a brilliant package. We just love that. And so they'll come back again.
And tell me about the things that, I guess as part of this, you see a lot of, let's not name names, but things that haven't worked or haven't been fully resolved, as people might say. What are things that people should avoid, or what stands out as that cringeworthy?
Okay, we'll take a step one step. The things that really work, and the things that work best from a tourism perspective when you talk about public art, are those that have been created from a collaborative point of view. Both Lesley and Councillor both mentioned earlier collaboration as being key. And it is because it's not just about the creation of the artwork. If you've got collaboration and all of your locals are passionate about it, then the likelihood that you'll be able to maintain that passion going forward into the future makes the whole process a lot easier. And once again, I'll use Fallon as an example. They recognised that they had created a beautiful artwork, everybody loved it. How do they get different groups of people coming to see it, and how do they get the same people coming back to see it time and again? Now, because the whole community was involved in it, they've been able to create a series of events around that are annual events. The most recent one they only held about 3 weeks ago, grazing at the Waterhole, a dinner at night in front of the silos. So gorgeous or local produce with a lit up silos in the background. It was spectacular. It really was. That couldn't have been created without a community who was really passionate about the artwork, who were invested in it right from the word go, and therefore are excited that it's been successful to this point. They want to keep it being successful and bringing new visitors into the town and getting return visitation. So they're willing to work together to continue creating interesting ways of making the artwork work for them.
So the flip side of that is obviously things that don't work is where...
Yes, there's a number of things that don't work. I mean, Sarah before mentioned she loves painting for a cause, and look, that's a brilliant notion, and where it works within a tourism band, terrific. But for instance, if you find something that's really quite confronting when you're a tourist, you don't like it. They don't like scary. They don't like confronting. They don't like ugly. And when I say ugly, I guess what I really mean is some of the styles of artwork where that they perceive as ugly because it's the opposite to what they perceive as pretty. I am not making an assessment about anybody's artwork in saying that. It just simply comes down to, is that a pretty artwork? Can I feel like I can stand in front of it? Is it something I want to share? Does it make me feel good? If it's not those, then it tends not to work as a tourism drawcard for public art.
That's an interesting, I think we could have a really good discussion about that, because where does art serve the purpose of tourism, and where does it serve the purpose for the artist, and where does it serve the purpose for the community? That's a, we might come back to that, because I think that's a hot point, because, there are obviously things that art is often used in issues where there might be crime in a place. And so are you going to be talking about the crime in that place, or are you going to be talking about ways of making that place more beautiful? There are ugly places in our towns that we want to beautify, or do we want to focus on? So it's especially with young people, often they're trying to say, this is my voice and this is what I want to paint. And you're saying that that's sort of like a bit of a barrier for tourism. So it's an interesting
for tourism
thing.
It is, yeah.
So I think that leads into the next one. What stories are people looking for when they come to regional Australia? I mean, we talk about a lot these days about the experiences. What are visitors wanting to see in regional Australia?
I think authenticity is number one. They want to be able to say that they have walked away from somewhere and felt that they've had an authentic insight into something about that town or where the precinct or the area that they've visited. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be an in-depth story, but I think it still has to be educational on some level, so reflective of place. And that's incredibly important from the visitor point of view. And they go, particularly if you look at it as we talked about before, where a lot of public art in when you're looking at it from an art tourism perspective, is about creating landmarks that are memorable. And once you look at landmarks that are memorable, then really you're wanting to make sure that it's an authentic insight that the visitor has walked away with.
You don't want to see the Sydney Opera House painted on a silo in Western Victoria, do you?
I would prefer not to, yes. That's right, exactly, yeah.
Okay, so I think that you sort of answered one of my questions, which was what works better, small discovery works or large-scale murals? Because you said discovery. How do you, if you were evaluating those in terms of your competition or your awards, what are you looking for? Are you looking for the knock me over mural or the little secret small thing?
I actually think both have a role to play, because we talked about surprise and discovery. And I'll give you an example, for instance, in Lanescape, when you're walking down that lane and all of a sudden you look up to the top of, I think it was a drain, if I remember correctly, or a drain pipe going up one of the side of one of the buildings, and you see suddenly a little black cat that's been placed up on top of there, and he's playing with you. You know, he's having a fun time right at the top there, and that means the second you see one of them, then you start going, oh, this just isn't just a series of artworks. There's actually something to play with that I can play with here. There's things to discover. This is going to be interactive with me on some level, an immersive experience. And once you get to that stage, you really love it. So then you start looking for other things around. So a series of small discoveries can still be incredibly awesome. For instance, one of our winners. Sorry.
Yeah. Lead you on from the bigger piece.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just going to say, for instance, one of our winners this last year was is called the Lake Dun Sculpture Trail. It's up outside Barcaldine in outback Queensland, and it's along a 200-kilometre road, a loop that goes starts from a little tiny town called Aramac and goes back to Aramac, and half of it's gravel, so it's a long road. But you have to really look in some instances to see those sculptures. You've really got to look, and people love it. So there's some parts of it where it's been created by one woman, and she has deliberately, they're all metal sculptures, and she has deliberately hidden some of them. And you've got to go looking, and that discovery, people just rave about it, absolutely rave about it. I think the last post we put out on it, and we did the second half of the sculpture trail this last year. And I think last time I looked, I think we were up to around about 130,000 people having liked or engaged with that post some way, and it was because of that discovery element.
Which is such a great thing if you're driving long distances in Australia, to actually break up the journey. You know, I see the things, it's the trivia things, but I mean something which is arty, that is whimsical and actually helps you to uncover something along the way is wonderful. So do you think that, given that, do you think there's a shelf life to public art? Do you think, a mural should be there for X amount of years, or is this something that we should be preserving for generations?
I think there's a two-way answer to that. I think that in some precincts, I think art needs to be evolving. Certainly in town precincts and city precincts, then it certainly needs to be evolving, because you've got a lot of people walking by it on a relatively regular basis. But out in the regions, if you have well-maintained art that's engaging and captivating right from the word go, and well-maintained is a really important aspect of this, then just like a Monet, it's going to maintain its beauty. And you're always going to have more people, new people, who are going to want to come and see it. It's about those people understanding that they can go to every corner of Australia and find some type of art that they're going to actually really love. And this country just has the most incredible amount of public art. We are so lucky. I just love it. You find it in the places you just don't expect. It's brilliant.
I think you do have the best job in the world. I think it would be a fantastic thing to do. So we're almost at the end of our time. It's been a fantastic discussion, but I'd really like to sort of open the doors of possibility to each of the panellists and say, if you could, I'm going to start with you, Phil, if you could waive here you are, there's no barriers, there's no budgetary constraints. If you could design the best, the biggest, or the most important, whatever, art outside experience, what would that look like? I wonder
if Eiffel said that.
I wonder.
Thought about the Eiffel Tower back then. We're very proud of our art trail in this region, right through Englewood, Texas, and Tabea, Wengal, and Goondiwindi. We've got some wonderful local artists. We've got a few projects on the horizon, one that we're looking forward to coming up, which could involve a big sign. I'll leave it at that at this stage. A very, very big sign, which I think will go global, really.
I'm looking forward to that.
When the borders do open up. But look, I think I think talking about Lanescape and that organisation, they've gone through with a very carefully considered and detailed master plan, which is what we're looking at the moment for our walkway along the great mighty McIntyre River. Beautiful. Which is one of the best rivers in Australia. Mm-hmm. And we're focusing on it very closely, supported by council all the way. It's hard to pinpoint. There's so many things I could say. A big guitar. As a musician. Very good.
Yes.
That could work, maybe.
I think that's been done.
I think so. But it's endless, really, for our community, what we can do. I'm very excited about the future of outside art, public art in our region, in our, certainly our town of Goondiwindi and our other little districts and towns in our region. And we have belief in our place. We have belief in the people on Lanescape and other artists right throughout our region. And there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of excitement, and the future is going to look very good, Goondiwindi, in our region.
Got that? All those artists out there, Goondiwindi's the place to move to.
Absolutely.
That's
Thanks,
fantastic. Mom. Lesley, what about you? If you as an art teacher, as a landscape committee member, what if you could design your perfect outside art event, what would that look like?
Well, I did have the privilege of you exposing me to that question earlier, and I have been, I'm not a debater, but I have been taking on board some of the really, really powerful key points that a few people have been saying this evening, particularly Liz, who just spoke before about things that I think are really important. So just to give our plug for our theme for Lanescape, or concept rather than theme, concept for Lanescape this year is echo. So I would like to echo, just saying, tying a few things together, some of the key points just in relation to a bit of a mantra that I have in my own art practice or my teaching practice or my involvement in Lanescape, or generally my perception of art, that if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. Right. So I don't want to be cliche about that, but my dream project would be to always consider the integrity, like Liz said, of place, and to consider in relation to that materials. The perfect example in this town, I think of that, is the Tree of Knowledge. I think the solid metal sphere around the tree on the river that informs the flood heights that have happened historically over time is a metaphor, a very powerful metaphor. I think it tells a story that is about our community, but in a contemporary way. So I don't think we should ever consider that we have to do things a certain way because, one, it might have tourist benefits too. Yes, it's important for us to consider that, but I don't think it should be, like Sarah said, if I could echo her points, a restriction for us. I think if we're powerful in our belief of concept and we move forward with that and then brief artists in terms of reflecting that concept, we get a surprise. We get something original, we get something new, we get something that may endure. And I think that is the key to not the biggest, because I don't think big is necessarily important, because Liz said little can be good too, and I agree. But I think that's the key, that if we're powerful in our concept and our artists are given the freedom, because they're the ones with the repertoire, the toolkit, to bring the fresh ideas, you know, and the surprises to us that are going to be out there for the public to enjoy. We're just facilitating that. So to me, my dream project would be that we echo all of those things. We collaborate, we're contemporary in the way that we think about things. We don't just keep doing things that we've done before because they worked. And then something that also Liz said that I was so excited to hear, because it's been Margaret Hawker on our Lanescape committee has said many times, you make the space and the people will come. You make the space beautiful, you make the Thalon silos, and then you create the event around that, then you've got a recipe for success. And I think that was just great to hear, because that's what we have been trying. That is something that underpins our decision making as well. So I don't know what the dream project would be, but I think they're the ingredients that might facilitate it.
What about you, Sarah? What would be your, for you to participate in, what would be your dream project?
I think Lanescape has always been one of my favourite festivals to participate in. The energy and the community is just phenomenal. So I think that's a really good roadmap of how to run a festival. But the one thing that I would really like to see more of from an artist's perspective, not necessarily from a community's perspective, but from an artist, it would be great if the space was not just us coming in and creating murals, but it was more collaborative with each other, with other artists, with communities. You know, we not only bring in, you know, our skills to paint a mural, but we bring in other skills, you know, workshopping with the community. It'd be a great opportunity to mentor up younger or emerging artists to become street artists, and to kind of use it as a knowledge sharing and a skill sharing platform at the same time, rather than showing up, saying hi to the community, painting the wall, saying see you next festival and leaving. So I think the knowledge sharing would be great.
That's good. And Liz, what about you? As the as you trip around Australia, what would be your dream, you know, discovery, or the dream event that you'd love to see happening?
I think it would be an event, but it wouldn't be one event. It would be probably 7 events held concurrently in a highly collaborative way. One in each state or territory, but in a surprising location where the surrounding communities, and not even necessarily a single community, but the surrounding communities in each of those places have gotten together and to create something that is bigger of place. So not just Goondiwindi, but maybe the whole of the region around there. And everybody comes in together and goes, you know what? It might be something that sits between Goondiwindi and St George, and the two collaboratively work together, and that's the Queensland creation, held somewhere really unusual that leaves a legacy that will keep drawing people back, not just to the communities on either side, but for everybody in that whole area and throughout Australia. You create a trail that is a truly Australian public art trail.
Because how wonderful would that be? Because if you're a visitor, to get a really great sense of what Australia is, because it must be quite daunting to come to a country like Australia. And if you land in Sydney, your experience is going to be very different to if you're in Tasmania or anywhere else. So if you could trip around and see these snapshots of what real life is like, that would be quite amazing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's been a really fantastic conversation tonight. Thank you all, the panellists. I'd love you to applaud all the panellists, because it's been really wonderful. I'd like to thank, big thank you to Arts Queensland and the South West Queensland Regional Arts Service Network, to Scenic Rim Regional Council, to Arts Front, to all our other partners and our speakers tonight, and to our audience. Thank you for participating. Join us again for Arts Dinners live and online next month, the 11th of May, coming from Beaudesert, where we're talking about celebrations and events now, which I think after COVID is very important. So we look forward to joining us again next month. Thank you very much.